Welcome to the Northeast Divide podcast. I'm your host, John Lane, and I'm joined by Anth, as always. And we're here to discuss the two biggest clubs in the Northeast, Newcastle and Sunderland. And this is going to be a common theme, I think, throughout tonight's pod. Just want to thank you all for watching or listening, however you're taking this in, and just ask you to watch us all the way through. And give us feedback. There'll be comments on YouTube and potentially with your podcast apps, but also you can follow us at Northeast Divide. We're available on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. So thank you very much for joining us. So first things first, Anth. God, what a week we've had as a couple of Northeast football fans. 3 games, 3 wins, 7th heaven. We're both 7th in the league. I mean, what's your thoughts overall on the result? Because I think going into the Stoke game, it didn't feel massively optimistic. You'd say.
I did not. You're right there, John. Anyway, yes, as you say, 7th heaven, 3 good results. I think was Bale listening last week with regards to when I said we were cumbersome and slow, breaking forward, etc., etc. He's gone on record and said that he's been working on that on the training ground and getting the ball forward a lot quicker. So we've got the players to do it. It's the fact that it didn't look like it was being implemented sort of to start off with the last few games anyway. But he quickened up the pace on Saturday, and I mean that's how I know we can play. A lot of the players played to their potential. There was a lot of high scoring individual performances, your 9s, your 8s, which is great, but we just need to be more consistent. That needs to be week in, week out, especially in the Championship. So a great result. It wasn't great going into the match with regards to the comments being made about Bale, of which there were many negative comments. But again, I was of the opinion, and you were the same, weren't you, that he's got to be given a bit more time. And the atmosphere wasn't as toxic as I thought it would be on Saturday. It was actually a really good atmosphere, 41,000 plus crowd. So yeah, is he implementing his style of play? Is he doing it slowly but surely? Will the players respond? Looking at Saturday's result, it's looking promising, and I hope so.
Well, fingers crossed for you, absolutely. I suppose I think
behind your back, that is, John.
What was that?
Behind your back, that is, yeah.
Aye, absolutely, yeah. No, I think I mean, what did your ground hold? 46. You had 41 there.
48,000, whatever it is. So yeah, and yeah.
Must be some overtime on it in this then. No, I think no, I think overall, I think you're right. I think it was a good result for you. I think it was what you needed. And I think you're right. There was a lot of negativity going into that game, right surrounding. I don't think the manager's done himself any favors on that front either. By the way, I think some of the comments he's made about kind of, and it was very reminiscent of like Newcastle in the Mike Ashley era under Pardew, where people were talking about, the media room was making this thing about this Cockney link and whatever, and it wasn't coming from the fans, but it was almost a narrative that became, because I had to come up with an excuse as to why. And I think he just needs to work on what he's doing at the football club to drive the performance. And I think if he does that, then I mean, I don't know what his capabilities are, but we'll see, won't we? So Newcastle, we played. So I don't know if you know, Anth. So we were in the 4th round of the FA Cup on Saturday night.
And right, thanks for reminding us of that again.
Yeah. So obviously we got a good win there, and I think probably not a great performance from Newcastle. I mean, I don't know if did you watch it?
I watched some of it. Yes.
Yeah. Thoughts from what you saw?
A workmanlike performance, like you say. It wasn't sort of anything out of the ordinary, but you got the result. And at this stage of the season, with obviously league games coming thick and fast, you played the other night, so it's a quick turnaround. You did well to get the result, and I said it last week. You could be there or thereabouts the final, possibly this season, if not definitely within the next few seasons, and it could start a run of trophy wins and kickstart up the league. So we'll wait and see what happens. But that was a good result for you, as it was.
No, absolutely. I think, look, ultimately in a cup tie, you need the result, you need the win. We hadn't won away in the FA Cup to a top flight side since 2004 against Southampton. We won 3-0. And that had actually broken a duck itself because we hadn't won away at Southampton in like 30 odd years. We couldn't do it at the Dell, but we managed to do it at St Mary's. So it's been 20 years since we've done that. So it is quite a remarkable result from that point of view. And we were best, but we did what we needed to do. Fulham weren't great either. And I think in a cup tie, ultimately, you need to get the win. You need to get through to the next round, get into the bag, and then come out hot. And so we've got an FA Cup tie, which is going to be played week commencing the 25th or 26th of Feb, against Blackburn Rovers away. I imagine that we'll have a massive allocation. We'll probably get the whole of the Darwin end stand. So it could be a really good atmosphere, and it's a massive opportunity to get into the last eight. And if you look at the ties, the way they are, like none of the big teams have like playing each other. So there's a real, it'll be really interesting quarterfinals when that all gets drawn out. And I think at that point you're talking about who do you want to draw, and do you want to draw an easy tie to get to Wembley, or actually, if you're looking to win it, I think you want like Liverpool or Man City at home, because you've got to beat them sometime. You're going to have to at some point get across them. And do I want to play them at Wembley? Absolutely not. Because it's like their second home, isn't it? Really.
It's a case of, I know what you're saying there with regards to the so-called minnows in cup runs and what have you. Yes, it's an easy path, I suppose, to the final or thereabouts. But you test your mettle against the big Premier League squads, and like you say, if Man City, if you do get to Wembley and you play Man City or whatever, like you say, they're used to that sort of ground, that pressure, that they've got that winning mentality. So yes, but yeah, I totally forgot you were still in the FA Cup. So thanks for mentioning that earlier on, John. Appreciate that.
Don't worry, I'll try and keep you on track with that, because I know that can be. I know your memory can go.
Terrible memory.
Yeah, I can imagine. So talking about wins away from home, we played Aston Villa last night. And I think lots of people going at that game, and myself included, weren't very optimistic from a Newcastle point of view. And we turned up. I think we had a really kind of professional performance. Kind of the way that we went about it. I thought, I thought we were excellent. I thought we really got at them. We really attacked the game. After we went 1-0 up, we continued to attack, which we haven't tended to do away from home. We've tended to kind of go 1 up, try and defend it, and then end up falling away and conceding an equaliser. Games like PSG, Chelsea, just flood into your memory, really. But when Newcastle go 2 goals up, usually they go on to win. So I think once we went 2 goals up, I felt really good about it. We got the third. I thought, right, well, we're in a great space. And Emery made 3 changes, which almost turned the game. But we managed to. They got a goal. They then had a goal disallowed for a tight. It was offside, but it was incredibly tight. I would say like centimeters between them being on and off. And then we ended up managing the game. He brought on Livramento for Miley, and he changed it a bit, and it's quite nice to see how do that, because he's had a lot of criticism for not kind of being able to kind of do that, essentially not being able to make that in-game tactical change to make sure that you can hold on to the result. And some of it, it is the players will be fresher, no doubt, but we still had nothing on the bench. We now officially have no striker going into the last couple of days of the transfer window. So we're in a bit of a precarious position from that point of view, but a great result, 3-1 at Villa. It's our first win in 5 in the Premier League. So, a bit of a turnaround in form from that point of view. It was the first game that Villa have lost at home since February last year. So, it should be a massive confidence boost. And that's the thing. You're talking about probably one of the worst away sides in the league against one of the best away sides in the league. So I don't know. Did you see much of that, and kind of what's your take on it, and kind of the result overall, I suppose?
I've seen the highlights, and it was a good win against a very, very good side, well drilled, well organised. Villa have surprised everyone this season. The manager's worked wonders. I always thought he was very unfairly treated at Arsenal, not given a decent crack of the whip, but he's done really well. He's got them overperforming, I suppose. But a lot of my Geordie friends have commented on the atmosphere at Villa Park last night and throughout the season when they watched games, and they said it was pretty poor last night. So I don't know if that played a part, or maybe the supporters felt a little bit apprehensive. And like you say, Newcastle were very well organised, well drilled. They had a game plan. They looked organised. Everyone looked like it had been drilled into them, the role they had to play, and they played it very well. And it was a good away win for us against a very decent side.
Yeah. I mean, I was buzzing about it and still like kind of pinching myself this morning that we'll manage to go there and get that result against, I mean, Villa, they're chasing Champions League, and you wouldn't be surprised if they finished in that top four. And I think I can't say I foresaw it necessarily, but I think there was a chance that they would be competitive. When you looked at the end of the season that they had, it was very reminiscent of the end of our season 21-22, and then we carried and had that momentum to continue on and build in the summer and almost step up. So I thought Villa would be a handful this year. I mean, we've played them twice and beaten them on aggregate 8-2, so I'll take that. I think hopefully we're their bogey side. I mean that works for me, but no, I think in terms of the atmosphere, I think I would agree. It felt, I mean, obviously I wasn't there. Felt flat though for the first hour. I think when Emery made those changes and Villa started getting a little bit into the game, the atmosphere, the home atmosphere certainly picked up at that stage. They scored the goal, the belief arrived. They had that one chalked off for offside. And I think they kind of stayed behind the side probably until about the 80th minute. And I think they started to realise, hang on, this is going to be a big task here to get another two. And, our trusty back four, the reliable four that Howe does trust really did kind of settle everything down, I think. And
very solid. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I think bringing Livramento on and putting him back there, and essentially he took Bailey out. And because Bailey had just been running the show, and then when you had to then get past Tino as well, it was always going to be a big challenge for them. So really happy with the result. I think we've done a cracking job, and we just need to continue really, and get some really good results. Got Luton on Saturday, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Transfer activity, transfer window. How busy is it in Wearside?
Not very. It's very underwhelming at present. The fullback that was, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name because I can't. I'm terrible with my pronunciation. But the fullback that was signed, we needed that obviously with Huggins being out and Sirkin, who are big misses because they've been so unfortunate with injuries. Great players, a lot of potential, fulfilling that potential. So yeah, he was on loan at Rotherham and he was steady apparently. So I don't really know a lot about him. I know he's a former Celtic man. I think we've paid allegedly anywhere between £1 to £1.5 million from him, which I think is quite a big fee, considering he's probably going to be our third choice fullback, or I'm not sure what other positions he can play in. So other than that, it's gone pretty quiet on the transfer front from our end, and not a lot happening. So a little bit underwhelming, but yeah, there's been some names bandied around again. And we'll just have to wait and see. The clock's ticking though, isn't it?
Yeah, I read on Twitter today that Bournemouth said that Sunderland were too far away from Kiefer Moore in terms of valuation. And I think ultimately that's probably going to be the case, isn't it? I think, it's one of those signings where fans look at it and go, that's the signing that makes sense. But the board look at it with their budget and the spreadsheet and go, actually, that's not really one that we can do. So do they pretend that they're going after it and kind of put in a low ball offer? Or do they just kind of sit back and go, right, well, we'll see what we can do, but if we can't do it, we can't do it. You don't want to make the Chris Rigg mistake, do you really? Have I got that name right? Yeah. Will Grigg. That's what I meant.
Oh,
yeah. You don't want to make the Will Grigg mistake, do you? And overpay for someone. Yeah.
that did not make for good viewing on Sunderland Till I Die. The panic buy approach. It wasn't good. I'm still scarred a little bit from that. And obviously his record was absolutely terrible. So we've learned our lesson. We've definitely learned our lesson, and we've got, a better structure in place when it comes to transfers, and, realistic, and we're not going to splash out silly money, obviously. But we'll have to wait and see. We do need a striker. We do need a striker.
Maybe Ibrahimovic on loan, do we think?
Stranger things have happened. Bring him out of retirement. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know. I just think, But I mean, I was very impressed with Bart on Saturday. He's come in for a lot of stick from certain supporters, which I've never quite understood. And he turned in an absolutely fantastic performance and obviously got his goal. And I thought, well deserved. You've proved the doubters wrong. I've never had any doubts in my mind about him because he's a young lad. He's still learning his trade. And some of the criticism that's been aimed at him has been very, very unfair. And he proved the doubters wrong on Saturday. So well done to him. Well done.
No, that's it. And ultimately, I think like us, you're going to be stuck with almost the squad that you started with. We're not doing anything. There's been a lot of noise around Wilson, around Almiron, around Trippier. Almiron sounded like it was going to be quite close, but I think looking in between the lines, the player hasn't wanted the move. I think the club could have made it happen. But Almiron's very much no. I want to stay where I am. I don't, I'm not interested in going. I don't think Howe particularly wanted him to go, but again, it's it's transfers by spreadsheets, isn't it? And people looking at it and going, if we can get this in, and this is when we can go and spend and do something. But the realistic thing is that when you smack a Premier League club with a 10-point penalty, and then you take two more clubs and say you're out as well, and we're going to have to look at you two. Well, obviously, one of those clubs has already had the penalty already, haven't they? So the rest of the league is sitting and going, oh, hang on, we need to be really careful. And it's just had this knock-on impact. The rumour is there's about 7 or 8 clubs, of which Newcastle are one of them, where we're really close to the line.
Very close,
And ultimately, I think the summer really for us is going to be the kick on. But you also have to ask yourself the question, we absolutely want to get into Europe, but we're 9 points? No, 11 points behind Aston Villa we are after yesterday's win. So that's a big gap to make up to kind of get back into the Champions League. So realistically, how different is it going to be if you don't get into Europe? If you're going to finish anywhere between 8th and 13th, really what transfer is going to take you to that next level? You're not going to be able to make that gap up, are you?
I was surprised at some of the transfer fees being bandied around for the likes of Almiron, who's done fantastic fees. I heard, you'll probably know more than me, £21 million. The first offer came in, or whatever, up to possibly 30 million now. You see him week in, week out. I mean, I've witnessed his performances as well. Some of his goals have been fantastic. So I would think he'd be worth a lot more than that. But it all went quiet on the Trippier front as well. He didn't want to move, did he? Because we were discussing this last week. We were thinking, does he want to go? Bayern Munich, Champions League, aspirations, could win it, whatever. Are they still second in the Bundesliga at the moment, whatever? But obviously silenced it. He didn't want to go, did he? And he wants to stay.
So, I mean, I've got my theory on this. I think that the club have gone out. So yeah, here we go. So I think the club have gone out, and I think they're basically saying, look, if people are interested in our players, we're interested to know what you think they're worth. And I think that some offers came back, and Bayern was obviously one of those. I think if the club had turned around to Kieran Trippier and said, look, we've had an offer of 20 million for you, and we're thinking of accepting it, I think he'd say, thanks very much, I'm away. I also think that when he hears that Bayern Munich are interested, he probably is considering that. But I also think he's very, very good at kind of staying professional within all of that. He's been nothing but a consummate professional for Newcastle. He's been focused on Newcastle since he signed for us. And I've no doubt that was also the case during this kind of period of speculation. Now, ultimately, the move's not happening. what's the point in him? Kind of, what else can he do now? He just needs to get his head down, and he was probably, and he is happy here. And I think that, I think he gets it. I think he gets the region, and there's something about our clubs, isn't there? There's a deep kind of passion from both fan bases into the club, and how much it means, the fact that you work all week to earn your money to then go and watch your team and hopefully see them get the right result. And if the result isn't right, it ruins your weekend and ruins the rest of your following week. And if the result is right, it perks you up, and and there is something special about this region around that. I think there is, and I think Trips gets that, but I also think that if he'd gone to Bayern Munich, he probably wouldn't have Bayern the Bundesliga at least once. He probably has one or two cracks at winning the Champions League, and he's 33, 34. And I think from Newcastle's point of view, if you end up getting an offer that you find acceptable, which was rumoured to be around about £20 million, that allows you, if you wanted to, not that they necessarily would, to go out and spend 100 million when you've already got his replacement in the building in Livramento. But I think Trippier also gives you so much outside of the pitch in terms of what he does in the dressing room and how he sets the tone, and the fact that he's got that experience, that it's very difficult to put a valuation on him. But fair play to the club. They haven't just looked at it like a PSR calculation and gone, this makes sense, let's do it. I think they've done the right thing in all cases, and we talk about Callum Wilson, yeah, people would say, oh yeah, well, he's injured half the time. I mean, he is, and I said that last week, didn't I? I said about how many games he missed, but how do you replace double-figure Premier League goals, and how much is that going to cost you? It's not an easy calculation. Exactly. And thankfully, it's not my job to work this stuff out. There's a guy called Dan Ashworth and another guy called Darren Eels, who they pretty much have to work this stuff out for Newcastle. So fingers crossed. They're ready for the summer, because I think I can realistically say now quite comfortably we're not going to make a significant signing or have a significant departure before the window slams shut tomorrow. And I would assume for Sunderland that's probably the same. You won't have any additional incomings from what I've seen.
I think you're right. We're going to have to. I mean, we got to the playoffs last season without a recognised striker due to injuries, etc. We had Ahmad back then. Magic Ahmad, how I miss you. So rumour mill was in overdrive, wasn't it, with regards to the little fella, the magician? But unfortunately, it's just not to be. I think we were offering to pay not the majority of his wages, but a fair whack of it, unlike last season. And his heart was in it, and he wanted to come. I know Borough allegedly came in for him, and then he said, if there's one Championship club I would go to, it would just be Sunderland. Basically, I don't want to go to any other Championship club. So
yeah, I saw that quote. It's nice.
Yeah, but I can dream. But with regards to Trippier, like you say, he gets the area, he gets the passion of the supporters, he's well respected. I thought the way he went up and, fronted up at Bournemouth with regards to, the grief the team was getting, I thought that told a lot about his character, and that's the sort of character you need on the pitch, in the dressing room. And I think it rubs off that the leadership qualities young players look up to. Players like that, they want to aspire to be as good as, if not better. So it creates a nice, challenging environment, but a positive, challenging environment. So, yeah, I think him staying will be nothing but a positive for yourselves. And with regards to us, I'm just hoping that we can hang on to Jack Clark, because apparently there's 2 bids coming from Lazio now and one's been increased. So we'll have to wait and see. Yeah.
Well, let's see what happens with that. I think it's one of those where if the offer's right, the club will probably have to accept it, isn't it? And it's a shame, really, for yourselves, I suppose, because you lose someone who's incredibly strong for you. I think on the Trippier note and the leadership, I don't think I appreciated how much of that he was bringing when he first came to the club. Obviously, I'd seen him play for England and being a top player for them, and be quality player for Spurs. Obviously, won the league at Atletico Madrid, and I wasn't sure what we were getting in terms of the off the pitch stuff. But he's been incredible throughout, and that's it's shone through. And I think that's been the biggest thing he's brought is apart from the fact that set pieces and assists and whatever else he's brought the last 2 seasons. You can't take away that dynamic from the dressing room. And again, really frustrated when people go, "Oh, but PSR and you have to sell, and and you do have to sell, but you have to think about selling the right people at the right time for the right reasons, and it has to work." And if you'd sold Trippier and Wilson in this window, you lose two leaders, two people who are in that leadership team, or that leadership group, as the club call it, and that's very difficult. A message that goes to the rest of the dressing room, because they're thinking, right, well, where do we look now? And that could derail your season. So let's see how we go from here. Right, Tees Weir Derby on Sunday. So right, I've got a big question for you, Anth. Is this a derby?
To me personally, no. It's when, yes, geographically, you could say they're very close. But I'll be honest with you, I don't really get excited much by this so-called derby. The big ones, obviously, yourselves. So
How
we
did you
saw
do
that.
in the last one against us, Anth? I can't remember.
All right, I was just about to mention that. Anyway, yeah, I mean, the build-up to that was phenomenal. I mean, the amount of I mentioned it before, the amount of messages I got from me Geordie mate, my best mate who's a Geordie, obviously living in Newcastle for 8-9 years I did, and obviously working in Newcastle with yourself, etc. And it was good banter. Afterwards was a little bit tedious, but there's a lot of people crawled out of the woodwork and sent us videos and voice notes and all that. But
Strange,
with regards
isn't it?
yeah, oh god, I got battered, honestly. But anyway, with regards to this one, I know it stirs up a lot of passion with some people, but to me personally, it's a big game. Don't get me wrong, it's a big game. Borough, our record's not great down at their place, be it, Essen Park or the Riverside. So it'll be interesting to see how the team turn out now we perform, because in the past we haven't turned in the performances against them, I think. So down there anyway. So it'll be interesting to see, but I'm sure our supporters will be very vocal and treat it as a derby. But me personally, I'll be honest, I don't really get overly excited about it. Like, as in the game I will, but the whole derby thing, no, not really.
It's an odd one. I kind of so the analogy I use is Middlesbrough's, like, Foghorn Leghorn. You know how you got
Yeah.
the little mad chicken hawk.
Uh-huh.
So I think they think it's a massive rivalry. They think like Newcastle's a massive rivalry, and they're like, whereas like we're like, no, like
Yeah,
we're not really
like,
that bothered. So
yeah, that's
I
it,
think that, yeah. So that's kind of
basically.
where I am with it.
Mhm.
But it's funny, Middlesbrough, we've not played them since, I don't think we've played them since 2010.
Mhm. Oh.
Because so we played them. So we both got relegated in 2009,
Mhm.
and then we played each other in the championship. We got promoted. Middlesbrough stayed down, and when they got promoted in 2016, we'd been relegated,
Ah, right, yes.
and then they got relegated. So we were
Mhm.
like passing ships. And then they've obviously been in the championship since then. So we haven't played them in ages. But there was a period where we played them we were playing them twice a year. And there was a longer period we played them like consecutively than we played yourselves. But it never felt like Sunderland. It never felt like the derby. Put it this way, I've stood in the away end at Middlesbrough on my old season ticket with a loyalty point, which I was never able to do with Sunderland. So when you look at it from that point of view, it's a
Yeah.
massive it's a massive difference in terms of how it's viewed.
Mhm.
But it is one, I think, for Middlesbrough, you kind of half feel like, well, I don't massively feel sorry, but like who are their rivals really? Like, who have they got? Leeds is probably too far away. Leeds,
Yeah.
probably their biggest derby would be Bradford, wouldn't it? You would have thought, or
Yeah.
Man United.
Uh-huh.
So they're kind of stuck on their own looking for a rivalry because of because of where they're
Not to
based.
be seen here, John.
Yeah.
Not really.
Well, yeah.
Me, one of
But
me.
go on.
I just think one of my good friends is a Borough supporter, and he's relentless with his banter stroke. I'd call it borderline abuse towards us when it comes to just anything in general. It's good character building stuff, and it's done in a slightly weird but positive way, I suppose. But the build up to this, I know I'm going to be batting off text messages from him, etc., because he loves it. He absolutely loves it, and some of the banter is on his part anyway really good. Whereas I tend to just try and sort of, I don't know, brush it off because I am of the opinion that there's a lot of normally noise off the pitch with the rival supporters going into the ground. I've seen footage from previous years where they're baiting each other, and there's a few sort of fisticuffs, I suppose, but more verbals than anything. It's just, they've watched too much of Danny Dyer in the Football Factory. So there's that edge to it, I suppose. It's more the build-up to it. And then when it comes to it on the pitch and what have you, yeah, it's a game of football that I'll obviously watch and I'll obviously take a great interest in. And, I want my team to win. I'll be shouting at the telly, etc. But I just don't get the other derby thing, because to me, it's just not.
Yeah, no, well said. Well said. I'm glad we're aligned. That's good. I mean, I'm just having a look at Middlesbrough's form, actually, because obviously we're going to go and preview that now, really very briefly. So they've had a really odd January, actually. So they lost on New Year's Day to Coventry at home, 3-1. You'll know how it feels to lose at home to Coventry.
Yeah, we do. Thanks for that, John.
Yeah, they then lost it. Well, just wait for this one. I'll just come up with this. So they then lost at home to a Premier League side in the FA Cup third round. So they lost to Villa 1-0 at home. And it was, I think it was quite a tight game. I didn't see it, but sounded like it was fairly tight. And obviously they've just lost one of their strikers, haven't they, to Villa now. So they're not going to be in contention on Sunday against you. They then beat Chelsea at home 1-0. They then went to Millwall and won 3-1 at Millwall 4 days later, or 5 days later. And then they drew at home to Rotherham, and then they lost 6-1 away at Chelsea. And they just feel a bit of a loose cannon team. I think it's one of those coupon buster games where you wouldn't want to put it in you wouldn't want to put that in your accumulator, would you?
No, definitely not. Do you know what? Obviously, I watched the second leg of the cup and down at Stamford Bridge, and what I was surprised with, I mean, was the reaction of the supporters. Because let's get it right, as football supporters, Northeastern supporters are pretty fickle. I'm not as fickle as I used to be, but we are. But they really got behind the team at the end of the 90 minutes. They were chanting, they were singing. All of the players went down. Carrick, I think they're behind the team and what the style of play is trying to implement. And I think Carrick, there has been blips, there has been some dips in form, some strange results, like you say. But I think as a manager, I think he'll prove his worth. Obviously, when you look at his background, where he played, who he played under, etc., it's all in place, isn't it? And obviously, the owner of Borough, Gibson, would probably stick through a bad run of form anyway, because he's not one for hiring and firing. So yeah, I watched that and I was surprised, actually, considering the batter and the took, how well the supporters responded. So, and I'm sure they'll be very vocal on Sunday, very vocal.
Yeah, and I think once again, I think this is a game that's a must win for Beale as well, because that's all he can do at the minute is win, get it. But I think we're almost in this trap now where if he wins, it's in spite of him, and if he loses, it's his fault. So he cannot win. So we'll see, won't we? How that plays out. I think it could be a really even game. He's certainly got a chance. As I said, Middlesbrough form's a bit erratic. They've had extra games to play in the League Cup. They've just lost their star striker. You're probably playing them at just the right time. Though these are all things I said before the FA Cup third round game. So who knows? But again, yeah, the Tees Weir derby. We'll have to see what happens in that one. So Newcastle have got Luton at St James's Park on Saturday, who we've lost to this year already. We lost 1-0, and obviously you'll know what it's like to lose at Luton after last year. I mean, they had a great result last night. I don't know if you saw, they beat Brighton 4-0. They were 2-0 up after 10 minutes, after 3 minutes. Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. So do you think they've got a chance coming to St James's Park?
Do you know what? obviously down there, it's a very tight pitch. The crowd are on top of you. It's not the biggest of stadiums. Obviously, it looks into people's. You can see people having a bath and hanging the washing up, can't you, from the away end or whatever else? I don't know. But I just think, they'll come. They'll give it a good go. But I think they'll win it. I think last night was a fantastic result for them. Brighton. Thing is, with Jason Steele in goal, I could never quite sort of trust Brighton because obviously,
of course,
yeah, he wasn't great for us, but so yeah, it was a good result. So it depends what game plan they use on Saturday. They're a very physical team, aren't they? So if they can frustrate you for the first however many minutes, who knows if they can frustrate you and obviously quieten the crowd down, who obviously are very vocal. We'll wait and see, but I can't see anything but a home win.
We are very good at home, and I know we lost at home at City, we lost at home at Forest recently, and the other team we've lost at home to this season's Liverpool. Everyone else we've beaten, and we've looked like pretty comfortable doing it. To be fair, even we didn't play great against Fulham like middle of December, and it was never in doubt really. Chelsea, back end of November, Man United just after that. I think. We tend to beat the teams that we can, the teams that you should beat at home. Forest was an exception. We were very poor on Boxing Day. But take that out of the equation, I kind of tend to agree. I think it's a comfortable win. I'd like to say 3-0. I mean, God knows who's going to score goals, though, because I think Isak's injured his groin. Wilson might be back, but there is word that Willock and Barnes might be on the way back very shortly, and might have some involvement. So the idea of Barnes being able to come on for the last 20 minutes to give someone like Miggy or Gordon or Murphy like a bit of a rest, that'll help. And that's something hopefully to look forward to. So yeah, I'm optimistic. I think 3 points for us. Did you predict something for your game?
Oh, me head says 1-1, but I think we might sneak it 2-1.
Interesting.
I think we might sneak it 2-1.
Yeah, and that'd be a good result for you. As you said, you're at that top end of the champ. Well, you're in seventh heaven as we are. And you're only a point outside the playoff places. So I think it's going to be a really competitive championship, as it will. The top 9 of the Premier League looks pretty competitive this year. But we're going to leave it there. So anyone who's decided that they were going to watch this on YouTube for the first time, thank you very much for watching. Thank you to everybody who's listening on their free pod channels as well. We really appreciate all your support. Again, please follow us at Northeast Divide on Instagram and on X, formerly Twitter. And just leave us any feedback, and we'd love to hear from you. We hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much, and goodbye.